In the tranquil parks and playgrounds where children's laughter usually paints a vivid tapestry of joy, there can sometimes be a darker, unseen shadow, muffling the usual sounds of mirth and leaving a chilling scene in its wake. In a fleeting moment, young Michael Dunahee, nearly 4 years old, became but a memory. His sudden disappearance not only shattered a family, but it echoed across Canada, making him the emblematic face of missing children. Many of you probably remember the haunting image. We're going to get into the story and explain the disappearance of Michael. This is a day in Victoria, British Columbia, and it's 1991. Michael, with his innocent charm and sprightly energy, played at a local playground. But in a heart-wrenching moment in every parent's nightmare, Michael was nowhere to be seen. Sudden and inexplicable, he disappeared. A disappearance that left his family in anguish and shock. So immediately, the family contacts the authorities and searches begin. The vicinity is scoured, every potential hiding spot is scoured. Every eyewitness is approached, and as the sun set, it was casting long shadows that seemed to mock the growing despair. Hope was not abandoned, but it certainly was dwindling. The investigation, right from the initial moments of Michael's disappearance, were led by the Victoria Police. The next day, the city was flooded with Michael's image. Flyers displaying his cherubic face, his distinctive clothing, and the haunting words "missing" were omnipresent. Victoria wasn't just a city on alert, it was a community experiencing a collective sorrow. The appeal from the city was to bring Michael home. It became a chorus that sung from every fleet. That became the chorus that was sung from every corner of the nation. With each passing day, as hope battled against time, the scale of the investigation expanded. Roadblocks were set up, inquiries were extended to ferry passengers, every vehicle was checked, and even divers were sent out to search the surrounding waters. Search dogs covered the ground, looking for any trace, but none was found. As days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months, no tangible leads were really found. Various theories emerged from the anxious chatters of the public. Was Michael kidnapped and so forth? Law enforcement was collaborating with agencies across the Canada and US. Michael's story reached international platforms, thousands of tips poured in, and each tip was meticulously pursued. Despite the magnitude of efforts and the passage of time, Michael's whereabouts seemed one of the biggest mysteries that city had ever faced. The Dunahee family, while grappling with their own anguish, became advocates for child safety, ensuring that Michael's legacy would serve as the beacon of awareness. But the core question remained unanswered. What happened to Michael Dunahee on that fateful day? How could a 4-year-old kid in broad daylight disappear from a playground with parents and people nearby, literally into thin air, vanish without a sight? It's perplexing and mind-boggling how quick it happened. A lot of theories, as I mentioned, swirled around with this case, but none of them have ever been proven or resolved, or really have any good evidence pointing one way or the other. And we'll touch on those theories, and we'll start with the first one. First one being a stranger abduction. So this is one of the most commonly believed theories, that Michael was abducted by a stranger. Given the quickness of his disappearance, some experts suggest a well-planned operation by someone who had been observing Michael and knew the playground's layout. So that could definitely be the case. This is a very real thing that happens, and it's something that parents should be aware about, and just about anyone with children. But the idea of a complete stranger taking your kid is not that absurd. It happens, and there's nothing wrong with walking around the mall with your kid on a leash. All right. Next up, that he was taken by a known individual. Some believe that Michael might have been taken with someone familiar to him, maybe a distant relative, maybe a family friend or an acquaintance. Such a person might have had easier access and could potentially lure Michael without arousing suspicion. On the darker, not that these aren't all dark, this is like the more darker side is the human trafficking side. So you have kind of like either sex trafficking or literally parts, human parts, that there is a trade out there. And some people think that this could be the case with Michael, that he met this horrible fate. And the other thing that I want to point out, you've seen in some other cases, when people are abducted at this young age, it is not that crazy to think that Michael could just be alive and well today and have no idea who he was or who he is. However, I think it's increasingly unlikely. A less conventional theory is that Michael was placed into witness protection, that he might have seen something, whether he was supposed to or not, or maybe he witnessed a real alien UFO type deal and the government wanted to put him in hiding. I don't think so. Another one is that he could have come to accidental harm. Some posit that there could have been a kind of nefarious part, someone known to Michael, where there was some accidental harm and there was like an attempt to cover it up, but it's pretty loose. One of the theories also suggests that Michael's disappearance is linked to a larger conspiracy involving child abductions across Canada. So if you want to dig deeper into this, I mean, there's movies like The Sound of Freedom that just came out. I haven't seen it. We hear the stuff on the internet, but there was also, I want to point out, during those time frames in Canada, there was serial killers active that preyed upon children. There's no answers. And we've seen a lot of cases like Bryce Pisa, where older people disappear like this, like no clue where they've gone. But in this case, at 4 years old, and they're so friggin' helpless. It's just so terrifying, so sad. I couldn't imagine what these parents went through. And honestly, the only kind of solace I can find in this story is that maybe he was kidnapped and he's forgotten who he was and he's still alive and he's happy and having a great life out there, however unlikely that is. I want to thank you again for joining us for this short video. So if you've earned it, please hit that subscribe button, and otherwise, please join us again for another video. Thank you.